Well, good afternoon. Can you guys in the back hear me okay? I was telling these guys I did one a couple weeks ago and had a microphone that kept like sagging down, and about every 5 minutes the guys in the back were like, I can't hear you. So if I tail off, just holler at me. Well, I appreciate the introduction, Kristen and Leslie. I won't go into too much about me or our firm, try to keep it quick, but today I'm going to talk about three things. I'm going to talk about time for a change, why we are where we are, and looking forward into the future, what we need to change about the engineering profession and how we approach projects. I'm going to give an overview of ISI and the Envision framework, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about how we've been applying Envision with our firm, and then also some of the other applications across the country. I always like to start off with this quote. This is a quote from Paul Zofnis, who founded the graduate program in design at Harvard. I'll talk more about him in a second, but what this quote says is, deciding what is sustainable in a world of finite resources where the demand for essential goods and services is growing along with our population is the most pressing public administration issue of our time. And it is an issue so large and so important that neither government nor the private sector can successfully address it on their own. Pretty good quote. And what does that mean to us as engineers, consultants, public-private organizations? Well, looking at where we are, this slide has two charts here. The one on the left shows the global population. Around where we are now, we're around 7 billion people. If we continue going on the projected trends, by 2050, we're going to be over 9 billion people globally. The chart on the right now, around 2010, if we continue with our current development and consumption patterns, we've got about 1.5 planet Earths of natural resources that population needs to sustain itself. Obviously, we don't have that, but even looking forward beyond that, to sustain that 9 billion people in 2050, we would need the natural resources or the equivalent of 2.5 planets. So we obviously need to look at how if you believe that those population trends are going to continue, we need to look at how we can change how we're developing and how we're using our natural resources. But the one that really got me personally interested in sustainability, infrastructure, and development at the community level is the fiscal situation that we're in. Going back to post-World War II and how we've developed with the suburban development pattern, you look at the federal debt situation, and then you look at some of the different communities around the country, and really what it boils down to is a lot of municipalities around the country, and now here in North Texas, are not bringing in enough revenue to maintain service levels and infrastructure that have been put in. You see some of these different ones around the country, but here at home, a lot of the communities, looking from the inside out, from Dallas and Fort Worth building out, and you look at the inner tier communities like a Carrollton or a Richardson, some of those that experienced real high growth in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. A lot of those subdivisions, a lot of that street, roads, water, storm drainage infrastructure, they don't have the money to replace it all. And a lot of them, I would argue that any city in the Metroplex, if you ask them that question, say, do you have the money to replace and maintain all of the infrastructure that you have right now, I doubt that there's any out there that can say yes. And that's just to maintain what they have, not necessarily to look at what they have going forward. So what does that mean? Well, 2050, what we're doing for those 9 billion people is happening right now. As engineers, we're designing the projects that are going to control how the development happens, how things are consumed, and half of that built environment that's going to be there in the next 25 years hasn't been built yet. So it's new opportunities. It's opportunities to do something different. That third bullet there, though, a large part of this is talking about the existing infrastructure that we already have in place, and what do we put back. So any investment that we make in infrastructure right now, any investment that our local community makes or our state makes or our federal government makes, it's got to be the right project. It's got to be able to create enough value that it can pay for itself over time. Looking here locally, these are a couple of graphics from the Mobility 2035 plan that COG put together. The one on the left, you look at regional transportation needs. They project almost $400 billion in needs. The previous plan that was done for 2030, they planned for a funding level of $145 billion. This recent update that they did, they dropped that down to available funding of $101 billion. I was doing a workshop about a month ago with Dan Lamers from COG down in Austin, and we got to talking, and he said this was the first time since they've been updating the mobility plan that they had to plan for a lower funding amount than they had from the previous time period. So, they're obviously looking at different ways and different types of funding that they can get in, but right now they have less funding than they did before. And then the chart on the right shows what that means and how they're going to go forward with the improvements that they are recommending. And you see those top ones are focused on maintaining the existing system, maintaining what we already have, getting as much value out of what we already have. And then the investments that we do make going forward are going to be looking at improving and getting a more efficient transportation system for the region. So we've got to reset our expectations. As engineers, as planners, we do get involved with a lot of the built environment projects. The everyday average person that you'll talk to, they don't understand how infrastructure is done. They don't know what it costs. They have no idea. All they know is when it's time for their street to be repaired, they're going to expect it to be repaired. They don't know how those funds work. And Chris and I were at a public meeting for one of our projects a few weeks ago, and one of the gentlemen that was there actually asked the question of, why did you pick our street? And we got into talking about that, and he left the conversation and basically said, well, I'm glad you chose to do mine now, because I don't know if you'd be able to get to it in the future. So, but we have to get out there. Every chance we get, we've got to educate and tell people about our profession, about what we do, how the funding works, and then looking forward to how we do projects differently. There are projects that inside our walls of our company or our organization, we know they're not the most sustainable project. We may look in the short term and say a developer is going to pay for this, but we don't always think about how is that community and those taxpayers, after the developer's gone, how's that project going to be maintained? So thinking more long term, thinking more holistically about how we do projects. And then the prism or the view that we like to take is always asking our clients and those that we're working with this question of, is the project going to create enough value in the surrounding community to pay for itself over the long term? If you're putting in a new subdivision, it might make a lot of money for that developer right now, but it's not going to make the money for that community to replace it over time. And that's why you get the mix at a community level of different types of mixed use and commercial and retail and all of that. But even then, with the balance, a lot of the communities here locally are still upside down financially with the amount of money that they're bringing in versus the infrastructure that they have to maintain. So that leads me to ISI and Envision. When you're talking about integrated design, you're talking about how do you quantify and communicate value of different types of infrastructure projects. There really wasn't a tool, a uniform tool or a common language that planners and engineers and economists, developers could use to start to communicate these things. And that's where ISI stepped in. Institute for Sustainable Infrastructure was founded in 2010 by these three organizations, APWA, ASCE, and ACEC. They saw a need for this kind of overarching framework, started to work on it. About that same time, Paul Zofnis, the gentleman that I quoted a minute ago, his program at Harvard was also developing their own tool. And in 2011, there were some conversations in DC and Boston that I was lucky enough to be a part of a couple of those. And they came together and actually merged their two systems together into what is now Envision version 2.0 today. So it's got some background of the professional side, some different societies, but also the academic, some really smart people from Harvard, some crazy spreadsheets that they were doing back then. But this is the ISI organization, the different committees. Bill Bertera is the executive director. He and I and Mike Wilkins spoke on this topic at the Centennial meeting as well. But there's board of directors. Bill Bertera, as I mentioned, is the executive director. I've got two committees there highlighted. These are two that I'm involved with. They're actually two of the ones that have the most activity happening right now. The technical committee, there's several subcommittees underneath that. Transportation. I'm the chair of the community land use planning committee. There's a water resources committee. Those groups right now are looking at the rating tool, continuing to revise and update the different scoring criteria and credits that are in the tool. They're also looking at developing some different packets for the different phases of projects like planning, construction, O&M, those types of things that I'll talk about in a minute. And then the economics committee has a lot of energy happening right now, working on the business case evaluator. And this is a tool the goal is to be able to quantify the full benefits of projects. So to put a dollar value to the social and economic benefits, in addition to just the fiscal benefits or the social and environmental benefits of a project, in addition to just the financial return. We've actually got two projects right now that we're doing beta testing on with that tool. They've started by focusing on stormwater projects, and then they plan to expand that over into transportation with transit and bridge and water as well. So I talked a little bit about why Envision was developed, but when they were looking at this, there were a lot of different systems that were out there or that were under development. Many of them were siloed into a certain discipline or type of project, but there was no system out there that was geared to cover all of the aspects of horizontal infrastructure. And so Envision was designed to fill that gap. When they were developing it, they looked at over 350 different rating systems, guidance manuals, design standards, and tried to pull things out of all of those. The intent is that, say you're doing a roadway project and you want to use Invest, for example. You can use Envision and Invest together. And when I talk about applications of Envision, one of the real values of Envision is actually at the highest level, is at planning and prioritization of different projects. So, my recommendation right now is to look, if you're at a city or a department or a community, to use Envision as a broad tool to look at all of your different types of projects. And then as you start to funnel in and you say, okay, we want to do a roadway project, then you can look at green roads or Invest. Or if it's a site project, you can look at sustainable sites, some of those kind of things. But don't try to do it the other way around. Don't try to take an Invest tool for a roadway project and then try to spin it around and spit it out of Invest. It won't work as well for you. Envision applies to all types and sizes of horizontal infrastructure. Vertical buildings is really the only thing that's not addressed in Envision. But again, when you're looking at trying to help organizations prioritize investments across water projects, roadway projects, site development stuff, they include all of these things. So the ISI folks and the people behind Envision felt like it was important to have something that could compare, investment in a water project versus investment in a transportation project, and look at quantifying the full value of that project for a community. Here's some of the different tools that are out there. The pre-assessment checklist is out. It's being used right now. That's a really good tool for a design team, just to kind of run through the list, just to kind of go through it with your team and say, are we thinking about this? Are we thinking about recycling? Are we thinking about water usage or wetland or some of the different construction materials that are in there? The full Envision tool, the guidance manual, if you want to look at a more detailed design, or if you do want to submit your project for certification, that tool is there. The economic companion tool that I mentioned, that's already under development, and then these phase toolkits are what the technical committees are looking at now, and that's taking pieces out of Envision that apply specifically to the planning of a project, the design of a project, construction, then O&M, and then ultimately decommissioning. Envision itself, the rating system, has 5 main categories and 60 credits: quality of life, leadership, resource allocation, natural world, and climate and risk. Again, the credits within each of these can apply to different types of projects. And then another way to look at this is really the first 2 categories look at, is this the right project? Is it the right project for your city? Is it the right project for the region? Is it the right project for your community? Is it the right project for your neighborhood? It asks those kind of questions, and it looks at how does that project fit in with maybe another project 2 blocks down, or at the regional level, how does that project fit in with Mobility 2035 or Vision of North Texas? Within a city, it looks at how does that project, the goals or the results of that project, how is it going to fit in with multiple master plans that a city may have? It explores all of those kind of relationships. And then the other 3 categories look at, are you doing the project the best possible way? Are you using materials and resources efficiently? How are you disposing of the waste? Are you minimizing waste that you're creating? And then the waste that you do have, how are you disposing of it? Climate and risk is an interesting category, but it gets into, there's some emission stuff in there, but it also gets into short and long-term hazards, resiliency, vulnerabilities, things like that. One of the things that the credits do, and Envision looks to do with projects, is to extend the impacts of that project. The vertical axis here looks at a drive towards restorative performance. So especially in terms of environmental, are you looking to restore the natural environment that was there before the project was built? It looks to extend the usefulness of a project. So more flexible designs or projects that can apply over a longer period of time, or can have the flexibility to adapt and evolve as the land use and the demand around it changes. And then the third one is where I see a real opportunity for Envision and where we're trying to use it, and that's just to extend the boundaries of use it within your team. Are you thinking beyond typical transportation design? Are you thinking beyond landscape architecture and what kind of plants you're using? Or are you thinking traffic and all of those things together? But then beyond just your team, your owner organization, how's that project going to benefit that owner, that community? All of the different types of stakeholders, the residents that live there, the schools, the kids, the ISD. There's lots of different organizations that can be impacted by projects when you start to think about it. And then going even further, looking at partner organizations. How is this project going to impact the neighboring community? How are 2 different cities going to work together? How is the county and the city going to work together? And then even further, the regulatory bodies of, how is this going to work with North Texas Municipal Water District versus EPA versus TxDOT and NTTA in that city. So all kinds of things that you can think about. And it's one thing to say, oh, well, yeah, we as a design team, we do all that. It's another thing to run through this checklist and really talk about it as a team and say, is this project really doing everything that we can to maximize the benefit? And I think you'll find that there's opportunities for us to do better. The credits themselves, each credit uses these 5 scoring criteria or levels. Starts with improved and it works all the way up to restorative. The conserving value is basically a net zero, no negative impact. Restorative, there's a lot of credits in there that you don't have the ability to get all the way to restorative. An example of something that would get a restorative credit is where you're creating a wetland, for example, where you're putting something back that wasn't there before. It's also a nonlinear scale. One of the things the technical committees do is they go credit by credit, and it's not a 1.2, 3, 4, 5 for each credit. Each credit is evaluated differently. So you may have one where the point value for getting enhanced is 2 points, and then for superior is 4 points, and then you go up to conserving and you get something like 12 points. It's different credit by credit to try to try to reward projects for doing some of those tougher things. It's a web-based portal, so if you want to use it as a team, you go in through the ISI website. This is what the main page looks like, and then as you want to start scoring your project, you click on one of the main categories, and it will take you to a screen that looks like this, where it's got each of the individual credits. You can go in and put in the level of achievement, and then it'll automatically tabulate your score. The other thing, I don't know if you guys can see my pointer here, but the other thing is for each one of the credits, if you want to see the details, if you want to see additional guidance on that credit, you can click on here, the details guidance, and it will pull that up there. There's also the hard copy of the guidance manual that you can use. This is what the scoring summary looks like. And then there are some certification awards. There are some that are talking about Envision and encouraging people to submit projects for certification to go get awards right now. Personally, I think with fiscally where most of our clients are, they don't have the money right now to go apply for an award. But what they are interested in is systems that can help them or things that can help justify their projects for funding that is out there. And Envision is something that is starting to get consideration in DC for different kinds of funding coming out of there. And I expect it will be tied to some state funding as well. We've actually got a meeting this afternoon with some of the folks at COG to talk about future grant programs that come out of there and funding programs that come from COG that may be tied to have Envision as a part of that. So ways you can get involved: education, professional credentialing. There's the sustainable professional certification. That's where you go through the training, you take the test, you get the SP behind your name. Those are the folks that understand the system, that understand how to apply it. They may not understand all of the different credits in as much detail as a verifier might, but they understand the different credits and how they fit together and what's involved, and how to go about finding information to score a project. It's also, if you do want to submit a project for certification, it has to be submitted by an SP to be considered. The verifiers is a smaller group of people that have been through some additional training and then are under contract with ISI to verify projects on their behalf. So it's similar to the LEED system, but that's all I'll say. Similar, but not exactly alike. So if you wanted to submit a project, you'd submit it in. Your SP would say, I think we've got this many points and it's going to be a gold. A verifier would be assigned to that project. They'll review it and come back and either agree with the rating or come back and talk with you about some changes that they see in some of the credits. ISI membership, there's opportunities there for companies, for government agencies, for academic institutions. Our firm is a charter member. It's the membership fee is based on the size of your company. So when we joined back in 2011, it was all three of us. It was pretty cheap for us to get on. So, but there's a lot of larger firms that have signed on now and have committed to get 100 or even 200 of their professionals licensed as SPs, and that's really starting to take off across the country. And then government agencies and academic institutions can actually get membership in ISI free. All they have to do is sign up. One of the goals of ISI is to get Envision used on a broad scale across the country and across North America, actually. So they're offering free membership to the cities and the academic institutions, and that gets you the same benefits as a company who's paid in, which is opportunity to participate in committees. You get discounts on training and webinars and other things like that. Case studies and project certifications. There's 2 projects that have actually received a certification right now. There's another 19 in the system that are about to get rated, and then a number of others. As each year's gone on and the news, I guess, has gotten out about Envision, there's more projects. To really go after that certification, you have to start at the very beginning of a project. So as those projects are working through the system, we expect to have more in there getting certified. And then the last one on an individual basis is committee participation. There's seven or 8 committees out there. Some of us have been involved for almost 3 years now. Some people are looking to go off and have some new people come in. So there's a lot of opportunities, especially in the technical committees. The more people they can get involved in those, because it's such a broad system, the more experience and expertise they can get in different areas and from different parts of the country, just makes the tool stronger. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is just real quick is a couple of the applications for Envision. The first one, more than a project certification, the greatest value Envision has right now is project planning and prioritization, because you can look at so many different types of projects at different scales and for different organizations, whether it's regional or a county or a city or a neighborhood. So you can look at those different alternatives for projects. The materials are pretty powerful tools for educating stakeholders and decision makers. It's real easy to sit down with that checklist and take this project and say, okay, I can, I want to sit down with an elected official, or I want to sit down with someone who cares about water, or someone who cares about, air quality. Whatever their buzzword is, you can tie that project fairly quickly, and you can start to get people together that might have been divided before. The scoring criteria and the economic companion tool provides some really good metrics and support data when you're starting to defend decisions. Elected officials, city managers especially, when you have $1 to spend and you choose to spend that dollar on a project, you need to be able to defend why you did that project. And this is just another way to help them, be transparent about what they're doing. And then this last one, and I touched on it a minute ago, the meeting we have this afternoon, but aligning and prioritizing local projects and funding with regional needs and environmental impacts. We've got two of the best with Mobility 2035 and Envision North Texas. We've got two of the best regional plans, I think, in the country. They're really, really thorough, long-range plans for our region. The problem is there's a pretty significant disconnect between the regional plan and what cities are actually doing. Cities want to go after that money. They want those COG funds or the EPA funds or whatever, but they're not, those projects that they're trying to get funding for aren't always aligned with what the region needs to get done to handle on our own scale, our own version of how many people are moving to North Texas. And here it's more about water than anything else right now. Mobility is an issue for us, but it's more about water. So the COG folks are looking at it from how can we get, how can we start to prioritize some of our programs so that more of the cities and other organizations will start to do more of the projects that we need them to do. At a development and corridor level, these are a couple of the projects that we've been involved with. The LID competition Kristen mentioned, that was I think our team and one other team, the team that actually won the Lamar category, used Envision, but that got some of the City of Dallas folks and some other groups exposed to what Envision was, and ultimately led to Envision being included in this last City of Dallas RFP. Beckley Commerce is another one that Don Raines with our group has been involved with that we've looked at Envision on. And then one that we're working through now with Leslie's firm, with Freeze Nichols, is Trinity River over in Fort Worth, looking at the Trinity Uptown development. They've got several different development scenarios there that we're looking at the costs and benefits of different levels of low impact development. And that's one that we're going through a pretty beefy business case evaluator exercise on right now. But our goal here, with whether it's a site development or a corridor, a new corridor or a corridor, repurposing or revitalizing different corridors, is to come up with flexible solutions that can meet the current needs, the current demands, but can also evolve over time with minimal incremental investment. And then I talk about communicating benefits to stakeholders, but there's credits when you dig into this. There's different credits in these categories that can help you talk about why this project is the best one for your community, why it's the best one for your city, or even why it's the best one for the region. There's really it's pretty easy actually to pull out the benefits of almost any project. You can't really do it for an alley. That would be kind of tough. But when you start to get some of the more significantly sized infrastructure projects, to be able to explain the value at different scales is pretty cool. Here's some additional information. The website's www.sustainableinfrastructure.org. That's the ISI website. That's where you can get all the information on how to sign up, how to participate. If you have questions, Bill Bertera, the executive director, loves to talk to folks from all over the place. He's really good about getting back with you. He's actually better with phone than he is with email, so I'd encourage you to give him a buzz. You can also call me. So what I want to leave you with, as engineers, think differently. Whether it's traffic counts, traffic projections, water usage, stormwater design criteria. The old way may not be the best way anymore. Things are starting to change, and some of those projections that we use need to be challenged some of the time. Use Envision where you can to explore opportunities to engage professionals of all types. I mean, get your urban designers in there, get your landscape architects in there, get some economic development folks. Anybody you can, get them in the room and start to look at the ways you can add value to your project. And then on a company or individual basis, get involved with ISI and Envision if you can. It's gaining a lot of momentum. It's being used in a lot of the main cities around the country now. I think, the next level, now that you have the Dallases and Chicagos and LAs and those on board, the next level of those large communities or the large suburbs are going to start coming online as well. So lots of opportunities to improve what we do and to get involved. So that's it.